two things that lead to parent burnout. Number one, you can have you'd be a sports family, which most of us are, but you need to build some weekends off for yourself. We call it resting our athletes' nervous system. They don't need to wrestle every weekend. They don't need to double bracket every tournament on Saturday and on Sunday. There's only it's called battery life. So build them some times off, right? So if you're training for a marathon, you have a 3-month training program. Okay, in 3 months I need to be able to run a half marathon. Another 3 months is when the marathon is, right? And you build this stuff in. So we like to say, set a target. Okay, we're a kid, we're going to Tulsa Nationals, or we got youth state, or we have high school, high school regionals, or we got Super 32s, which is the biggest, baddest high school tournament in America. And so what you do is you set a training program, you put that on a calendar, then you work backwards from there, and you say, okay, what's my training program look like here on out? And you also start to maybe look at when are their tournaments. Like, dude, there's not many tournaments for 2 weeks during Christmas break. So yes, we're going to wrestle 3 weekends in a row on Saturday. And there's 2 really good tournaments this weekend, Saturday and a Sunday. We're going to hit both of those. Are you okay with that? And then there's going to be a couple weeks where there's no tournaments. So sometimes you got to hit it really hard for a few weeks in a row because there's just not a lot of availability for tournaments. So you got to play that game a little bit too. But I think it's very important to say, okay, guys, we're practicing, Monday and Wednesday. We're not going to Thursday practice. We're not going to go to a tournament Saturday and Sunday. And we're also taking next Monday off, and Tuesday. And so we just build in like a 7 or 8 day break. And then Wednesday we hit it hard again. So you even miss practice. And you build these little rest periods in for the kids, and those are also rest periods that we build in for the family. And you should not see what we like to do is we like to ignore wrestling for 8 months a year and then go freaking crazy for 4 months because we want to get a scholarship, or at least that's what our kids think that they want to do is wrestle in college. And we just end up, it's feast or famine, and I don't think that's the best way. So, if you train in our academy, let's say 2.5-hour practices, which is what we have, and how we formulate our live wrestling and so forth. If you just practice 1 day a week year-round, you're going to get 640 matches worth of live wrestling. See, some people say 1 day a week isn't going to do anything. Let's just not do it at all. No, it's 640 matches worth of live wrestling with a lot of different tremendous partners. And it's 55 hours of drill time. So is 1 day a week year-round going to help? You tell me. And I will also say this. Sometimes you're burned out because of other sports. If your kids are in middle school and they're like, I want to keep playing soccer or baseball, and they're not ready to just do one sport, but they really, really want to wrestle in college, and that's their number one sport, then maybe they don't have to do super duper $20,000 a year, 75-day games a year, traveling baseball, batting cages at 7 a.m. on Sundays. Maybe just do the New Melly baseball, the Moscow Mills baseball. Practice for an hour and a half twice a week. Play baseball for fun. And see, you don't have to practice 3-4 days a week and travel the nation like a rock star doing ultra select baseball. You can still do baseball, but we don't have to do extreme baseball or extreme soccer or extreme volleyball. If our kids their main sport is wrestling. Because let's be honest, I mean, it gets to be too much. And don't feel like you're not a good parent because you don't allow your kids to do 3 sports at just very expensive, high-level, advanced level. If their main sport is wrestling, that's like, we're going to do this hardcore, but we're not going to do this other stuff. And then as they get older, they might would there's no way I'm going to be big enough for football at my high school. I'm a Class 6 Oklahoma high school. I'm just not going to make the team. Okay, well, you like football, but, you're not going to play in high school anyway, probably. Let's just quit. And then you're like, okay, now I'm a wrestler, and I do basic baseball. And now that I'm not doing football, I can keep wrestling. But you're not maybe going to wrestle 3-4 days a week, but you're going to do once a week, maybe twice a week. And so now you're kind of removing a sport from your schedule because the writing's on the wall. At some point in time, you have to understand this. The writing can be on the wall, and you're like, dude, we're not making this. Because this is a problem, especially in the big schools. And I say this a lot, and it pisses people off, but it's true, because I'm from a small town, too. When you're in a small town and you're like Class 1, let's say, you might be able to win a couple of state titles in high school and only wrestle 6 months a year. Pulling a wrestling camp. We got 230 kids here for 28 days. No, for 14 days. 90 are here for 28, and the rest are for 14. But I think sometimes we need to be realistic about what we can do, because you're not going to make class 4 soccer team in the state of in St. Louis if you take time off. So I think at these bigger classes and bigger schools, we need to say, if I'm going to dump most of my time into wrestling, because this is my main sport, that means I can't dump year-round time into volleyball. And the odds of me making the Class 6 volleyball team, in Arizona at some fancy high school. And so you have to make a decision. And that's the reason I think, we shouldn't specialize in sports at a young age. But sometimes, if you don't go year-round, in Texas in Class 6 football, you're not making a football team. I'm sorry. And you say, that's not fair. Well, it is what it is. Same in wrestling. You're not going to make the high school varsity team in some of these Class 4 states in the state of Missouri or Iowa or some of these great wrestling states unless you're putting a lot of year-round time in. You're just not. And so if you're like, okay, honey, your volleyball career is probably going to be over. So maybe when you are in middle school and you're like, you know what, she doesn't put a lot of time in because her main sport is wrestling, and she just dreams of making the Olympic team one day, and she's really dedicated, we're putting a lot of time and money on this. Okay, let's maybe remove ourselves a little bit and say, okay, I'm going to do wrestling year round. I'm going to do my second sport that I do for fun at a lower level, and I'm going to remove myself from this sport because I don't think it's going to be there for me because I'm a Class 6 Florida kid, and the kids there who make the varsity baseball team are professionally trained year-round. So, and I'm not doing that because I'm a wrestler. So start thinking outside the box a little bit. Check us out, Purler Wrestling.